Badass of the Week is produced by High Five Content and $7 Productions.
The year is 458 AD. The Western Roman Empire is dying. Its heart, Rome, has been sacked twice. Its mightiest province, Gaul, is now held by a Visigoth king who has not feared the emperor for years. Yet, today, beneath the towering walls of the Visigoth capital, Aralade, a fragile line of Roman legionaries stands ready to assert the emperor's will. These are not the legions of the old empire. They are the leftovers, the mercenaries, the final effort of a dying power. Standing before them, however, is the emperor himself, Majorian. Majorian is not like the weak rulers who preceded him. He is a Roman, cut from the granite of centuries past, a figure of commanding height and traditional unyielding discipline. He steps forward, his polished armor reflecting the grim sunlight. He doesn't bellow or plead. He projects an authority that demands silence from the disparate, quarrelsome masses he leads. There stand the enemy, he says, confident and numerous. They call this land theirs now. They call the men before them weak. They whisper that Rome is finished. Majorian doesn't deny it. For decades, they've been right. But then, the emperor's voice tightens, and the meaning shifts. He declares that this motley assembly is his army, a Roman legion. The steel that must cut through the rot that has consumed the Imperium. They're the only thing left of 1,000 years of glory. He strips away their old identities. As Goths, as Alans, as Huns, their tribe does not matter. Their gods do not matter. In this single moment, every man standing here is Roman. He issues the final, simple command to the last functioning army of the Western Roman Empire. Form ranks. Show them what a Roman legion looks like when it remembers how to fight. And with that, the Emperor Majorian personally leads his last hope screaming into the line of Visigoths before him.
Hello, and welcome back to Badass of the Week, the show where we tell the badass history of badasses. My name is Ben Thompson, and I am joined today by two special guests who are going to talk about some pretty interesting Roman history here. I am joined by Matteo and Matthew Storm. They are the hosts of the podcast Lost Roman Heroes. Matthew and Matteo, thank you so much for being on the show. It's really great to have you here on Badass of the Week.
Ben, we are absolutely thrilled and honored to be here. We're huge fans of the podcast.
Oh, thank you.
You do such great stuff. From Ted Williams, personal fave. We're big Red Sox fans. Go Red Sox. Exactly.
Yeah. I'm a Mariners fan, so it's just a tough time for all of us right now.
Oh, yeah.
I feel for you, but you guys got farther than we did.
That was
so
a great
congrats.
run.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I think we're the only team that hasn't made it to the World Series yet, though. So it's a little tough. I was living in Boston when they won it, though, in 2004. I was
No way.
No kidding.
Yeah. I went to Game 4 of the ALCS that year against the
No
Yankees.
way. Against the Yankees. Oh,
Yep.
man.
It was funny
jealous.
because
That's incredible.
we almost sold our tickets because they got crushed the night before. They were down 3-0, and they'd gotten crushed the night before. I remember they were interviewing Stephen King, being like, how bad are you guys getting beat? They're going like 13-0 or something. He's like, I don't know, this sucks. And so we almost sold our tickets. Like, we showed up, everybody had brooms, and all the Yankees fans had brooms and stuff in the stands. But man, that was the greatest sporting event I've ever been to in my entire life, was being at that Game 4.
That was the big Poppy home run, no?
Yep. Yeah, that was it. It went into extras, and they'd announced over the loudspeaker that the last tee was going to run at 2:00. So if you wanted to make it, you need to go now. And everybody just kind of looked at each other, and they're like, well, I'm not leaving. My life's gonna be hard in about whenever this game ends, but I'm not leaving right now.
That ALCS series was one of the most epic sporting events of all time.
Yeah.
That comeback,
You witnessed history.
Yeah, and then just be there for the city. Like everybody was tired for that whole week because everybody was staying up super late. It was awesome. That was awesome. But we did talk baseball in the a recent episode, but we are going to be talking something a little different today. So you guys are the hosts of a show called Lost Roman Heroes. There's 80-something episodes now. It's great. I went through and listened to a bunch of your old episodes, and I just want to say I really, really like the show. I think you guys are doing a great job.
Thanks a lot.
Speaking of which, so we wanted to have you come on the show and tell a story of a lost Roman hero, and you suggested a few names that were people that were familiar to me. We could talk about Belisarius. We could talk about a couple of people that I've been wanting to talk about that I haven't done yet. And then you were like, actually, I want to talk about Emperor Julius Valerius Majorian. And I was just like, who is that? it's tricky. It's hard to trip me up on this stuff, And I've been doing this for 20-something years. It's a little tricky to trip me up on it. And when you said Majorian, I was like, I don't know who that is. And that kind of fits the vibe of your show. It's Lost Roman Heroes, and I think about the Roman Empire all the time. And I didn't know who he was when I started researching this episode.
That's awesome. Yeah. You know what, Ben? We feel some kind of weird sense of obligation to. So Lost Roman Heroes is about finding those hidden gems, the guys and sometimes girls that stood up when Rome needed a champion, when things looked dark and the odds didn't look pretty. And those characters are often largely lost to at least the popular histories, right, Matteo?
Yeah, or have been written out of the common... The lingua franca, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely the case.
The original canon.
Yeah, and Majorian is one of those guys, but not only because his story is, well, we'll get into it, but because the period of time in which he lived didn't have many good histories written. It was a dark time with darker times to come. So
yes, definitely. Yes. And so that was kind of what happened for me as well. So, I didn't know the story. He is interesting. He is badass. I completely agree with you. And the more I got into the story, the more I was realizing, wow, I'm surprised I'd never heard of this person before. So why don't we start with, why don't you just kind of give me the broad strokes on who this guy is and why you picked him specifically?
Most definitely. Would it help if we kind of framed a little bit where we are in time, Ben, before we talk about Majorian?
I think that's a good idea. So let's go ahead and start with the time frame, because like we were talking about just before the show, when we think about Roman emperors, a lot of times we're picturing the Augustan era, Augustus and his family with the, the red crest helmets and the very traditional Roman legions. And when Majorian comes around, we are late in the Western Roman Empire.
That we most definitely are. Yeah. So to your listeners, if Rome was founded somewhere around 753 or so BC, the Roman Republic was established around 509 BC. So first we had the kings, then we got the Republic, then Julius Caesar and his nephew Octavian did us the favor of murdering the Republic in around 27 BC. Matteo and I go back and forth on this. He has a more charitable view of Caesar than I do.
My typical co-host, Dr. Pat Laris, she's a classicist, and she is very fond. Has much more fondness for the Republic than the Empire.
That's my son's point of view as well, and I sort of feel the same. But then you get this period of time when in our podcast we didn't do a lot of episodes. It's the Pax Romana. Rome is the big bully on the block. And when you see Hollywood movies or TV shows, they tend to picture this era, as you said, Ben, where you have glistening marble, endless legions.
That's right.
Grapes are being hand fed to you while you...
Dudes in togas, yeah.
Yeah.
And we talk about, so when we cover that for Badass, when we cover that era for Badass, it's almost always somebody fighting against Rome. Like there's the fun emperors, the crazy ones, you get the Neros and stuff who are fun to talk about. But come Vespasian and stuff, it's like, you're kind of starting to root for the other guys because they're underdogs. Because everybody's getting crushed. You're looking for the Bodicas of the world.
Most definitely. And so it's hard to find heroes, at least how we define heroes in that period of time. And then this Pax Romana period ends we would say after the death of Marcus Aurelius, we're not historians, we're partial and biased, and that's where we pick it.
You're in the right place.
Yeah. Once the philosopher emperor dies on the Danube, and to listeners, we're big fans of Gladiator and that scene where Marcus Aurelius dies in the beginning of the movie. That's how we picture it too. And that's when the wheels start coming off the wagon. That is Rome. And you go through what's known as the crisis of the 3rd century, where in, I think, 18 years, you have a succession of 19 emperors.
That's right.
And it's just nasty. Rome is beset on all sides by pressures on the frontiers, on the Danube, on the Rhine.
And from within.
And the Persians. And once upon a time, Ben, where the Senate once kind of drove the ship, now legions in the field are raising emperors on shields.
Right. You see this, you start to see this really late on. We did an episode on the Damnatio Memoria and like the history of the Damnatio Memoria. And that's kind of this time period, the 3rd century. A legion will be like, I think our legion commander should be emperor. And then they just march on Rome and put their guy in charge. And then like Damnatio Memoria, the guy before him is like, that guy didn't exist. This guy's the real emperor. He's probably related to Caesar somehow. And then like 6 months later, some other army shows up and they're like, actually, I think our guy's in charge now.
It was really,
it's a really difficult way to run a government.
Complete chaos. And I think most casual lovers of Rome, and I think there's so many of us out there, aren't aware of how ugly it got and for how long that period of time was. But Rome recovers, just like our Red Sox did against the Yankees in that ALCS series in 2004. And you got a guy like Aurelian, who is one of our faves, who comes to power around 270 AD, and Rome had literally split in 3 separate kind of empires. He brings it all back together, and then you get a period of stability and relative order. Unfortunately, that's not where we are for this episode.
Yes,
because
he does get killed in Damnatio Memoria as well.
He does. Yeah, and his buddy Probus, who served after him, had the same thing happen to him. And then, so that's, if we fast forward now around 100 years or so, in the year 375 or thereabouts, you had. Actually, it's probably like 390, the last Roman emperor to rule over both an Eastern and Western empire, because at this point, Rome has a capital in Constantinople to rule the East and a capital in Rome, Milan, or Ravenna to rule the West. Theodosius the Great dies. And after that, the path of the Eastern Roman Empire and the West really diverge. And for this episode, we're in the West. And in a West which is in decline in a really serious way.
Okay, before we get too far, let's take a quick ad break. And when we come back, we'll talk about the Emperor Majorian and just how he ended up in that position. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. We're here with Matteo and Matthew from the podcast Lost Roman Heroes. We were just talking about how the Roman Empire right before Majorian was in decline. And so that was really the interesting thing about going into the story. When I was looking at Majorian, I was like, oh, he's kind of taking over in 457 AD. He becomes emperor. Yep. And I'm just like, wow, that's really late because, when you talk about Western Roman Empire, usually like the end of the Roman Empire, some people will place it at 410 when Alaric the Goth sacks Rome. And then in 455, the Vandals under Gaiseric, they sack Rome. So Rome's been sacked twice, 410, 455. And then 2 years later, this guy becomes emperor. But like, he's actually taking over after some historians kind of cite this is the end of the Western Roman Empire. It's dead. But then this guy takes over and that's kind of what he's inheriting, right?
Absolutely right. Yeah, that's really the most incredible thing about him. Most people think that Rome in the West, at the very least, has given up the ghost at this point. But you have a man, an incredibly capable man, who very earnestly goes about the business of trying to save the sinking ship. And that is Majorian. So Majorian, as you said, he becomes emperor in 457. He is the grandson of a fellow named Majorian who served under the Emperor Theodosius. his dad served under the general Aetius, who is also a badass and completely deserves his own episode.
Yes. Aetius is the guy who defeated Attila the Hun, right?
That's right.
That's exactly right. With bubblegum and shoestring, he managed to defeat.
He had been. I've written about him on the site. I haven't done an episode on him yet, but Flavius Aetius, he was a prisoner of the Huns for a while. I'm trying to just go off memory from many years ago, but he was a prisoner of the Huns for a while. Then he kind of learned their fighting style. So then when he came back, he raised the army and he was like, we got to fight this whole crazy different style of army. Like these guys, I mean, the Huns at this time were basically the way we think of Mongols, like they're on horseback with bow and arrows, which Rome was like the Parthians, were very successful against the Romans. That was not a style that the Romans really liked to engage, and he had to find a way to fight them. And
you're absolutely right. And his story's even cooler than that, because before he was brought up by the Huns and he spent about 15 years or so, if I'm not mistaken, with them, he spent 5 years with Alaric and the Goths as a hostage before that. So it was like mixed martial arts.
Yeah, he was definitely like a cowboy. Definitely on the frontier.
Yeah. So, and another thing he was, and this leads into Majorian, is my son, he had incredible eye for talent, right? Aetius did.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting when you think about it, because when Rome, especially the West, was at its absolute peak, it seems that the leadership was always at its absolute worst, right?
Yes.
But in these last final 30, 40 year stretch, it seemed like even though there was really no hope for recovery to its most full extent in the West, there are a couple remarkable figures to come out and try to preserve the fire in those last days.
Yeah, that's right. And so this guy Aetius spotted talent, and he elevated a few remarkable guys. Amongst them was Majorian, and probably the most remarkable of them all as a young man. But he also spotted and promoted a guy named Ricimer, a guy named Marcellinus, a guy named Aegidius. And he put together a series of young generals that you could pluck down at any point in the Roman timeline, Ben, and they would have been exceptional. And it just so happens that they appeared right here in the last days of the West.
Yeah, and just imagine at this time in Rome, promoting somebody based on merit and ability, and not just, are you rich? Are you from an influential family? Because Rome at this point, this is the decline and fall of the Roman Empire, right? There's no Gaul. When we look at the empire on a map in 457, there's very little bits of Gaul, no Spain. Most of North Africa is under the Vandal control. What we think of in that Pax Romana, where you have the entire Mediterranean encircled, that's not there anymore. You've got Italy, and you've got some holdings just outside of Italy, and that's about it. And, barbarians at the gates kind of thing, literally Vandals, Goths, Visigoths, Huns, everybody's just trying to the empire has collapsed. There is this little cadre still there. There's still a lot of money there. The barbarians want to get at it. The Romans are trying to hang on to what they can, but the whole system is so corrupt that everybody just they take over, and then they loot and plunder whatever they can get their hands on. And there's not this patriotism for Rome that we see in the earlier days, where everybody's willing to sacrifice for the good of the empire. Everybody's kind of out for themselves. And so Aetius, he's not from that system. He comes from a different system. He wasn't raised in Rome. He's raised with the Goths and the Huns. And so he promotes these guys based off of their ability to command troops and their intelligence. And wow, what a concept. This is
yeah. What it is, it really is, and it's an incredible concept. And he knew that desperate times called for desperate measures, and he did extraordinary things. But that Aetius guy would wind up getting murdered by his own emperor, a jealous Valentinian III, which it was, cut off your nose to spite your face kind of stuff. It was really terrible.
Yeah, that's going to be a theme today, I feel like. You're competent? Well, we got to do something about this guy. He's cramping my style. He's cutting into my profit margins. We got to get rid of this guy.
By the way, You just put it well. One of the biggest issues, and Matteo and I talk about this all the time, one of the biggest issues at this point in the West was, in fact, the Senate itself, because the Senate still existed. these guys were uber wealthy. They were all the equivalent of modern day multi-billionaires. And there was no real commitment to this, to the greater good, or, the fabric of what was Rome. It was, hey, listen, my life is good. It's a shame that yours sucks. But I don't want to pay my taxes. And what have you done for me lately? So
yeah, and that was definitely a sentiment that was felt across the empire because, like you said before, not only were the barbarians at the gates, but they were the ones defending them too, right? It wasn't the Roman citizens that were protecting their lands anymore. It was barbarians. So it seems like
hiring mercenaries all over the place.
Exactly.
So the borders are defended by mercenaries. And then when the Goths show up, they're like, hey, you guys are Goths too. Why don't you just come with us? And they're like, all right, that sounds great.
That's very true.
The Romans aren't treating me any better than you guys are. So let's go.
Yeah. So just brutal. So you have this succession of tragedies. Aetius is killed by the emperor. Then the emperor is killed by Aetius's kind of loyal supporters with the scheming of a dude named Petronius Maximus behind the scenes. Then Petronius Maximus gets himself elevated to the emperor and realizes it's a really unpleasant job. Don't really want it. The Vandals invade, conduct a brutal sack of Rome. Petronius is killed. This is all in the succession.
Petronius is killed by his own people while trying to flee.
Yeah,
like he's trying to run away. Like the Vandals get there, he runs away, and his own people are like, "Where are you going?" And he's like, "I'm out of here," and they kill him. And then
I think somebody tossed a rock, hit him in the head, knocked him from his horse, and ripped him to pieces. Yeah, it was not a good end.
And then the Pope is able to negotiate with the Vandals, where he's like, all right, you guys can take whatever you want, but just like don't kill or torture anybody. Don't just be cool. Like you can steal whatever you want. Just don't and burn the city down and stuff. So they do. They honor that. They steal everything they can get their hands on over the course of like 2 weeks. They do take the guy's wife and kids, though. They do take his wife and his daughters away. But other than that, they it was a good work by the Pope to kind of negotiate that. But this is where we're at. This is where Rome is at right now. This was 2 years before Majorian takes over. This is the deal that we're trying to make. The Pope saved Rome by being like, don't kill everybody, please.
Yeah, they're sending out old men to negotiate.
And not only that, but that same Pope had saved Rome from Attila the Hun a few years prior. That's Pope Leo I. So
we should talk about him, I guess. Yeah, I'm going to add him to my list.
He's a badass. He's completely a badass. He qualifies for the full episode treatment. Anyways.
Okay.
So that's exactly where Majorian is there. Where is he at this point? He's actually, as a young man, he's already retired. Majorian out. He wasn't there when you had the succession of quick-lived emperors. He wasn't there when Aetius was killed because Aetius had pensioned him off early. Basically because Valentinian III wanted Majorian to marry his daughter, one of the young princesses that wound up getting kidnapped and taken to North Africa. But Aetius said, no, the princess is going to marry my son. So he dodged a bullet. And so Majorian is still alive and well after the sack of Rome, and he is brought back to try to pull the pieces together.
So he's handed the throne, or he doesn't take it by force.
He doesn't take it by force. And I think this is legit. By the way, we hear about this constantly in Roman history where somebody is raised up on the shield of the legions and they protest. Oh, no, I couldn't possibly. But
my favorite is I tell the story is the story I tell all the time to my friends and stuff, especially if they're like, hey, you want a dessert or whatever? Because I start the story and people look at me like I'm crazy, like they don't know where I'm going with the story, and I'll be like, oh, well, in the ancient Roman Empire, if you were gonna be the emperor, they wanted you to be the next emperor, even if you orchestrated the death of the previous emperor with the idea that you would be the next emperor. You had to say no twice. So they'd be like, you should be emperor. No, there's got to be somebody better than me. No, you have to. No, I really don't think who else could we be? It's so much work. And then they ask you the third time and you say, oh, okay, I guess I'll do it. That's how I do with desserts and stuff. That's why it's a big deal when St. Peter denies Jesus 3 times, because the first 2 times they're like, whatever. The third time, that's the big one.
That's serious. So yeah. Italy right now, or the Western Empire, which is basically Italy, as you said, Ben, is rudderless and it's empireless. And typically at this point, you turn to the East. The Eastern Emperor would be the one to appoint a successor emperor. But it just so happens that the emperor in the East had just died too, a guy named Marcian. And there's a new emperor in charge, Leo I. He's just getting his bearings. And so he looks to the West and said, hey guys, I'm not ready to appoint an emperor yet, but I'm going to appoint two generals. We'll put two generals there and try to organize things. And one was Majorian, and the other was Ricimer, and this was very early in 457. And Majorian was a practical guy. He's like, listen, make me emperor or don't. Italy needs defense. And he took part of the army and he rode up north to defend against some, Marcomanni incursions. And Ricimer went down south to Sicily to defend against Vandal incursions. They were super successful. And after a battle up north, Majorian's troops, he didn't want it. And you know what? I don't think, maybe he wanted it, but I think he was so busy doing the job. He didn't actually, this wasn't him orchestrating it behind the scenes. I would like to think. Don't you think, Matteo? What do you think? What's your take?
Well, it's hard to say because there's no history talking about it, but I'm definitely biased about Majorian, so we'll just say that they put it on his lap, I think.
Yeah. So
knowing what we know about this guy, right? Like what we see from him, because it is like, oh, okay, yeah, oh no, not me. Anybody has got to be somebody better. But what we know about him once he takes over is that he does kind of seem like he's cut from that old cloth. He's cut from like that Pax Romana general style, right? Yes. And so whether it's that like he really didn't want to orchestrate it and he had Rome's good at mind is one thing. There's also a chance that like he was like, look, nobody else gets it, right? Like I bet I got to be in charge because nobody else is understanding. Everybody's running this place to the ground. Everybody's an idiot. Like you got to put me in charge for the good of Rome.
100%, because if you look at what comes next, this is a guy that had a playbook. It's something he was thinking about. It wasn't accidental. He knew what needed to be done in the same way that an Aurelian knew what needed to be done, and he did it very quickly. So on April 1st of 457, he's declared emperor. Leo in the east in Constantinople at first was like, I don't know about this guy. I'm not so certain. But very quickly saw that this was a capable guy. And frankly, he didn't have many choices. So by December of 457, at the age of 37 years old, he is formally declared emperor and acknowledged by Leo in the east. 37 years old, facing one of the blackest, darkest, ugliest moments in Roman history. And he didn't hesitate, Ben. That's the coolest thing about him, is what came next came very naturally for him.
Right. Yeah. So he is inheriting a very difficult job here. This is one of those things where, like, if you play like, Rome Total War or something and you try to load one of like the weird scenarios where it's just like, here you go. You have like one phalanx and you have no money and all of your cities are revolting and everybody you're at war with like 8 different countries. Like that's kind of the job he takes over. It's hard mode in Total War, and he's in a bad state. He's got very little money. The money that is coming in is all being stolen by people in his government. They are like dismantling. People are like breaking apart old like Roman ruins and old Roman structures and things. Like his empire is being sacked by his own people while he's running it.
So true. And by the way, not just people. The prior emperor Avitus was stripping the monuments of their valuables after Rome had just been stripped by the Vandals. Things were that bad. So no Britannia, no Hispania, no Africa. No Gaul, pretty much. You have a little bit of Gaul. And no food in the larder. You're not getting grain doles from Africa anymore, and you have no money in the treasury. So what does he do?
Why don't you tell me? Because this seems to me like an impossible job. It's one of those ones where you load the game and you're like, oh, forget this. Like, I'll go back to the one I'm used to. I'm going to play Byzantium on this one, actually. I don't want to play Rome, actually, is no good on this one.
Exactly. So Matteo, what does he do? The first thing he does?
Well, I mean, he throws himself right into the eye of the storm, which, goes to show the quality that he's cut from, because, at this point in time, his job was not, let's bring the fight back to the enemies. It was, let's stay alive, and actually was very successful, in continental Europe in terms of taking back Roman provinces.
He was, but even before he got there, he knew that if he were to be successful, he needed to get people to buy into the idea again. Like people, it had been a long time since people believed, and he needed to get them to believe. But in order to get them to believe, he needed the citizens of Rome to be able to see palpable benefits of his rule. So the first thing he did was protect the homeland. Let's just, step number one, protect Italy. Let's try to secure the borders of the homeland. Remember, we are Italians, we are Romans. This is our home. You can feel safe in your home. And he did an very effective job with that in year one. In 457 and 458, he was very focused there. Part of believing as well is, hey, you might not be a senator fat cat, but the law is going to work for you too. And he starts passing, Ben, very good, concrete, pragmatic laws, and laws that survived into Justinian's Corpus Juris Civilis, where we can actually hear Majorian's voice. And the laws did things like the following, like some of the big ones. Don't strip public buildings.
Stop looting your own stuff.
Stop looting, because that's our cultural heritage. It's our patrimony as Romans. It's important. We need to protect it. Like, yeah, that makes sense, man. This belongs to all of us. People, by the way, tax amnesty. This is similar to something that Julian the Apostate did when he took control of Gaul. Genius tax move. Hey, Ben, you haven't paid your taxes in what, 5, 10, 15 years? You're a senator. Don't worry. Don't worry. Sorry, Ben. Didn't mean to call you out on the pod. But it's okay. I forgive you. You don't need to pay what's due in the past. Hey, but you got to pay 2025 taxes, okay? Can we agree on that? Pay your current taxes? All of a sudden, all these guys that had these massive tax arrears are saying, I just need to pay today? Okay, I'll pay.
Yeah, that's a good trade.
Brilliant trade. Money starts coming back into the imperial treasury.
Clean slate.
Yeah. Laws prohibiting corruption and his officials. Guys, you can't shake down the local population of the towns and the cities that you're governing. I mean, all commonsensical things, but brilliant. Not only did it get money flowing, but it got people believing again. Hey, this guy, he cares about Italy, not the Rhine frontier. He's here, and he's here to protect us and to make things better. So,
and he's not the same as these other guys that have been coming through to just kind of plunder and loot, right? Like, it's been a kind of a depressing time to be a Roman citizen if you're just a regular person who's not benefiting from all the corruption. And for this guy to come in and be like, look, like, for the first time in a long time, the emperor cares about the people of his empire. That's pretty cool. And it's kind of, I feel like that makes it a little bit easier to kind of feel patriotic for the Roman Empire.
Definitely.
When you feel like the emperor actually cares about you as a person, not just as a tax income.
Yeah, it's so true. And by the way, he was probably one of them. We don't know for sure where he was born, but most speculate that he was born in northern Italy. It's been a long time since we had a native-born son on the throne. Mm-hmm. He started building 2 small fleets, one to protect the Adriatic coast and one the Mediterranean. Something interesting has been going on in Italy at this point, Ben, which is back in the days of Aurelian, he started building walls around cities in Mediolanum and Ravenna and Rome to protect against the northern invaders. But the problem now is more in the south than it is in the north, and those cities are exposed. Walls were never built around them. So in places like Sicily and Sardinia. And so with these fleets, he's now able to harden the borders down south as well and to protect the coast.
Right. And you had like an existing infrastructure. So you have the Alps up north, right? You have a big mountain pass, and you have infrastructure dating back to like the Republic of forts and, defensive positions in those mountains. It's hard to attack Italy from the north, but for a long time, the enemies were up there, right? The Germans and the Gauls and the Spanish. But now, like after the Vandals sacked Rome, they went into North Africa. And so the Vandals are in North Africa now. And this is kind of Carthage again, right? They're attacking from the sea, from the south. And if you don't have a fleet, you can't deal with these guys because they can hit anywhere on the coast, and you need to be able to intercept that fleet because you can't fortify every coastal city in Italy enough to fight these guys off. So that's the new plan.
It's so true, by the way. And you can't emphasize enough to your listeners. Many people don't realize this. You basically have Thor and a bunch of Vikings that crossed the frozen Rhine River, made their way down through Gaul, Hispania, crossed over to Africa, and took Roman Africa, which was not only the breadbasket of the Western Roman Empire, it's where most of the food came, where the grain came from, which was critical, but it was also the tax base for the Western Empire.
It was
where
the
all
lifeline.
It was the lifeline. And so once Thor and the Vandals, it wasn't Thor, it was a guy named Geiseric, who was a lot like Thor. Once he took Carthage, there was no way for the West to survive. And Majorian wasn't the first person to realize this, but he was the first person to try to do something about it in earnest, which is one of the reasons why we love him.
Yes. So one thing I do like, kind of going back to the monuments, because at this time people were kind of pulling the old monuments down and using the stone to rebuild other things because it was hard to mine the new stone. But they kind of credit Majorian with saving the Colosseum, because the Colosseum was still around at this point, but it wasn't being used for gladiatorial games anymore. People were pulling stones out of it, and I think it was like a place where prostitutes would go and hang out, and if you wanted to meet a prostitute, you could go there. And he kind of made it punishable to, like, if you're going to steal stones out of the Colosseum, we're going to flog you in public and amputate your hands. And that solved that problem.
That's justice.
Yeah.
That's justice.
Yeah, it gets people's attention.
Yes, so and that's one of the 7 wonders of the modern world. So thank you, Majorian. All right, this feels like a good spot to stop for another ad break. And after, we'll continue talking about Majorian taking over and what he did to really bring Rome back together. Welcome back. Matthew, you were just talking about Majorian really taking control.
So step number 1, control Italy, and he got control of Italy very quickly. This is like the first 12 months of his reign. And step number 2 now, Ben, is ultimately the last step is Africa, and we need to start building towards Africa.
Got to deal with these guys. They just sacked Rome. You can't let that stand. They've got the princesses. They got the empress. Like, we got to get this guy, right? We've got to go get him.
Mortal insult. Nobody's ever going to take you seriously unless you punish these guys.
They're called the Vandals.
Still walking around.
Yeah, the barbarians are called the Vandals, and like, we have the word vandalized in English because it comes from what they did to Rome. Like, they vandalized Rome. They stole everything. They just demolished it. They ruined it. So, like, we need to avenge ourselves on these guys. So let's build a big fleet to go over there and do Carthago delendo est again.
Exactly right. So, but he needed to do it with, bubble gum and shoestring, because there were no endless legions anymore. So he had to be shrewd about it. He was brilliant. And the first thing he did is he reached out to a fellow in Dalmatia named Marcellinus, who was one of the commanders underneath Aetius.
And they came up together under Aetius.
They were good buddies. And he said Marcellinus was now ruling in independent Dalmatia. After Aetius was killed, Marcellinus said, "I'm no longer obedient to the emperor in Ravenna. You guys suck." Mm-hmm. And he was able to bring Marcellinus back on board. Marcellinus said, I support your plans. We're friends. Count on me. Then he started appointing generals in Gaul, including a guy named Aegidius, another badass. Aegidius, Syagrius, Ben, that would be a great topic for a future episode for you.
For sure.
And these guys moved into Gaul. Aegidius moved into Gaul. He was Gallic and started getting control of southern Gaul and preparing the way for Majorian. And he appointed another guy named Nepotianus, who was the nephew of Marcellinus, to go into Hispania and start trying to get a control of Hispania.
Right. So they're moving they're not only defending Italy, and this is a short time, it's been less than a year, right? And to be able to go on the offensive now, I mean, when we had Robin Pearson on to talk about Nicephorus Phocas, and he was just like, wow, like at that point, this was the 900s, and Byzantium is in a similar state to Rome right now. And it was like, wow, not only are we not losing anymore, but we're retaking cities that we had previously lost. And, we're kind of expanding, which it's been a long time for Rome since they've been expanding. They've been defending. And to be able to go out and attack, that's a great, like, propaganda win. That's a great moral win. And like you said, they have shoestring. They have nothing. They have very little troops to do this with, but they're going out. And I mean, I love the idea that he takes Dalmatia just because, like, the guy was like, I'm going to be an independent king because I hate you. And then when he takes over, like, oh, actually, you're cool. We're back. So he adds that region just by reputation alone without having to fire an arrow.
Yeah, it's so true. And it's frustrating because the historical sources are so bad, but we can deduce by what he was able to accomplish that he must have had a phenomenal reputation based upon actual deeds and not just a name, because he didn't have a name. This was no blue blood. This was no, the son of. No, he did this in his own right. And it's even more amazing, Ben, is what comes next. It had been a long time since we've seen a warrior emperor. The last one was Theodosius, and he was nearly 100 years before. Majorian now does the incredible. He rides out. He uses the money that he just got in these tax dollars he was able to scrape together because he was a genius and he was able to entice people to pay. And he put together an army. But this is, to your listeners, this is no Roman army. This is an army of misfit mercenaries from barbarian tribes. Yes. And the names, you've never heard of these names. The Bastarnians, the Suevians, the Pannonians, the Neurans, the Huns, the Gettins, the Dacians, the Alans, the Belenont, and so on and so forth.
This is one of these things that like really speaks to the ability of this guy, right? Because it's not, because he marches out and he's going to be successful in fighting in Gaul with this army. And this army is made up of people from not just throughout the empire, throughout the former empire, right? Like the Huns are in Eastern Europe now, right? He's getting these guys, and he's getting people, they all have different fighting styles. They all speak a different language. They don't like each other, right? They don't have some of them are not particularly well trained. And so he's able to get this huge misfit group of people from all over the world who, in a lot of cases, hate each other, and get them not only to work together, but to be successful in an attack. Which is, there's those people who are people who really know stuff about military stuff. They say the most important thing is logistics. This is like a logistical nightmare.
Yes, absolutely.
You have no money and you have an army that all speaks different languages.
Absolutely, and he puts himself at the head of that army. He marches them up into the Alps, over and down again into Gaul, where he had an incredibly well-organized foe waiting for him. And the foe at this point was a guy named Theodoric II. He was king of the Goths, and they had basically been running an independent kingdom inside Roman Gaul for decades, and there was nothing that the Romans could do about it because they were that tough, rough, and difficult an opponent.
Right. And it's the opposite of his army because, when Julius Caesar's going through Gaul, it's a bunch of Gaelic tribes that hate each other. And he's able to kind of, we'll help you beat your friend. We'll help you beat your ancient enemy. You join us and then we'll beat them. And then now that we've done that, we'll attack you and finish you off. So he's kind of able to play these different Gaelic tribes against each other because they all hate each other. But this is a tribe of a bunch of different mercenary tribes that don't like each other, and he's attacking a unified Gaul. We are not too far away from Gaul being, the Frankish kingdom,
Yeah.
His army was built completely upon ensuring that those men would get paid and that they would win battles. So he really didn't have the chance to lose. He didn't have the opportunity to waste by losing a battle.
Right. I'm going to win this battle, and then there's going to be good loot. Follow me, and I'll bring you loot.
Yeah, that's a brilliant point that Matteo just made, and it's a lot like the situation Heraclius is going to face in about 150 years or so. He couldn't afford to lose, and he didn't. So he rode into Gaul. First, he crushed the Burgundians personally. Then he rode to Arelate, modern Arles, in southern France, which was the capital of Roman Gaul. Met the Goths in battle and crushed the Goths. And again, frustratingly, we don't have details, Ben, as to the course of battle. We just know that he won. And we know that he won because there's a little scrap of a letter written by a guy named Hydatius, who was living down south in Portugal, that said something to the effect of, the Augustus Majorian and King Theodoric had established the strongest vows of peace between themselves as a result of a Gothic defeat. And the defeat was so sound that the Goths became federates again of the Roman Empire. They said, we submit, we're not independent, we're not worthy, you're the real deal.
Yeah, all the king stuff was just a joke.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really funny thing about this time period, too, and it might contribute to why we don't know more about, or why Majorian is not more popular nowadays, which is, it's kind of a weird thing to think about, where it's like we have better records of the Augustus time period than we do of this time period, because, it's kind of like their lights are getting turned off on the Roman Empire, and people aren't being as scholarly and writing as many histories, and the ones that did get written probably got burned up by the Goths or something. But like we don't have as much detail on this time period. So that little scrap of paper that's like, they met at Aralate and the Romans crushed, and then it's like, well, can we have a little bit more information, please?
Yeah, it's so it's tantalizing. It's frustrating. You get these little pinpricks of light in the darkness, and which is one of the things we love about this period. As frustrating as it is, there's something kind of super cool and romantic about it. But
yes, you get to fill in the blanks with like whatever action movie you want.
Exactly right. So he's effectively now taken back Gaul. So now he has Italy, and now he has Gaul, right, my son? And he sets his eyes. Remember, the objective is down south across the Straits of Gibraltar. It's Africa. But to get there first, he needs one more piece of the puzzle, and that's Hispania. Right?
That's right.
But to get there, he now has friends to help, the Goths. The Goths are on side.
Yes, he's building his army as he's moving forward, which is one of those very rare things that makes it very powerful. If you can keep going forward now, it's like, oh, okay, well, now that you're federati, like, we need troops. So pay your taxes. We'll do the same thing for you. We'll forget all your old taxes. You don't owe King Theodoric II any more taxes. You pay me for this year's 2025 taxes, and also you're in the army now. But I'll pay you. We'll get loot. It'll be fine. They got tons of money in Egypt. We're gonna go plunder Cairo. It's gonna be great.
Yeah, we're gonna be good. Imagine how compelling and courageous and charismatic he must have been to get these guys to believe, because now first he got the Italians to believe, and now the Gauls that really hated the Romans for a while, even though they were Roman, because they had just killed an emperor from Gaul, Avitus, and all of a sudden Majorian's there and they love him again, and they're clapping him on the back, and we're back.
But he knows these people, right? He knows soldiers. He came up with Aetius. He was fighting in Gaul against the Huns and stuff. So he knows these guys. He knows soldiers. He knows people. So number one, he cares about this stuff in a way that previous Romans haven't, and sometimes just caring about the thing can be infectious or inspiring. And then number two, he knows how to talk to these people specifically, right? Like there's a chance he probably knew some words in Gaelic, right? Oh, wow. 100%. Think about those guys being like, oh, don't destroy the monuments. These guys being like, oh, he doesn't just want to crush us and kill us and loot our stuff.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah. And I think, one thing is to say it. The other is to say it with a true belief. And I think he was really that guy. I think he actually did care. So they sweep into Hispania. They meet the Suevians in battle. The Suevians were at that point in control of a good chunk of Hispania. They crush them with the help of the Goths. And now Hispania's back.
Federati again.
They're Federati again. He has Hispania. He has Gaul. He has Italy. He's done this in 24 months. He's done this in 24 months. 2 years,
yeah. This is the most territory Rome has, or Western Roman Empire has held since the 430s, probably. Like it's been 100 and something years since Rome had anything like this, right? They've been being pushed back, and
definitely, and the largest reconquest since Aurelian, for sure. By far.
For sure. And so, wow, like this guy's crushing it, and now he's got this fleet he's been building, something like 300 ships, right? And we're gonna go plunder Carthage. It's gonna be like the good old days.
Yeah. He's setting this up to be the Fourth Punic War, to go out there and crush Gaiseric and the Vandals and take back the breadbasket of Rome. So he sets himself up in a place called Colonia Caesar Augusta, which today is the modern town of Saragossa in Spain. Okay. Which Saragossa comes from Caesar Augusta, which, I don't know, is something that tickled my funny bone. Really,
I never put that together before. That's interesting.
And he starts building this fleet in a place called Nova Cartago, which is modern Cartagena in Spain, which was, Matteo, an ancient Punic city founded by
Hamilcar and Hannibal Barca.
Yeah.
Oh, dang. Okay.
Just a couple hundred years earlier.
Yeah. Which is so cool because that was the launching point for the Second Punic War and Carthage attacking Rome, and now Rome is coming back to Africa through that same staging point.
This guy knows what he's doing. He's good at the propaganda game.
Yeah,
Except it was
absolutely genius. So his big question here, Ben, is how do I get to Africa? I have the ships. Where do I land? And we're not entirely certain what his plan was. Some people say that he planned on crossing the shortest distance to Africa, so Straits of Gibraltar, and then a long overland march to Carthage. Others said that he planned to sail to Sicily, meet up with Marcellinus, and then hop over like Scipio Africanus did in the Second Punic War. We don't entirely know.
One of those tough things, right? Like people have been struggling with how to attack North Africa for a long time.
Exactly.
Right?
For a long time.
Where you could the landing on this North African coast is not the hard part. It's the marching an army through the Sahara Desert that's a little tricky.
Yeah, that's true. The desert does get a little tricky. So the fleet is almost ready. The Vandals know what's going down, and this cagey old king, Gaiseric, sends a letter, a formal letter, a friendly letter to Majorian saying, Dear Emperor, let's be friends. Like, what is all this nonsense about? We think that you're swell and we'd like to toe the line. And Majorian would have none of it. And it was a sign of how impressive Majorian was, that Gaiseric, who didn't kneel to any man, was ready to strike a peace deal with Majorian.
Gaiseric is the guy who was the war leader who sacked Rome.
Yep, he's the despoiler of Rome.
Yes, he plundered Rome, and he's still got that army, right? He didn't lose a lot of guys in that campaign, and so to hear that like he's messaging Rome like, no, I don't want to fight anymore. We're good. That shows that he was at least a little bit worried about Majorian and this giant fleet that he was building, and didn't really want to get involved with it. But you can also understand Majorian's point of view, where he's like, this is going to be like, we gotta, I can't forgive what you did to the city, because Majorian was there. He was there when they sacked it. It was 2 years before he became emperor.
He was there.
He saw it, and so he's like, no, I'm not going to forget what you guys did. We owe you one. So. Get ready. Yeah, we're coming.
100%. Get ready, indeed. And so this brings us to a point where we have an anecdote, another one of those scraps, Ben, that we were talking about before. We don't know if this is factual or not, but there's a Roman historian, Procopius, writing maybe 50 years later that gives us a little snippet of something that might have happened in the lead up to invasion, which is just about as cool as it gets, which is the following. Majorian, on the eve of battle, and just a quick quote, wishing to spy out the strength of the enemy, he went to Carthage in the company of a few men after dyeing his hair, since it was already gray, and so changing his appearance. But when he was recognized by one of the Vandals, he escaped death only with difficulty and returned to Italy. So he went on a spy mission, disguised himself
the emperor
into the lair of the enemy.
The Augustus himself.
Wow, that's pretty cool. That's it though, right? Like, you've got to see the stuff up front. You can't, he's a guy who leads from the front. He doesn't trust his corrupt generals and his corrupt regime. And he's trying to make a institutional change, but there is still corruption at every level. You can't, you got to see it for yourself. I can't just let somebody else take over. I've got to lead the army myself. I've got to I've got to negotiate this peace treaty with the Goths myself, or with the Gauls myself. And he's got to see it for himself. So I respect that. That's, Rome's been needing this for a while.
Yeah, that personal valor as well. It's not about me. It's about the nation. It's just so cool. Anyways. Mm-hmm. He gets back home, Ben, and not long after, the fleet is ready, and Majorian rides out to meet the fleet. And on the way, he receives the news. And the news is horrendously bad. The news is that this cagey Gaiseric somehow managed to infiltrate the Roman camp at New Carthage, at Cartagena, and set fire to the Roman fleet. And they burnt down to the waterline, to the timbers. There was no more fleet.
sometimes you can't beat the system, right? It's depressing, but that's it. Yeah, his who we don't know who did it, but it's likely that it was at least partly an inside job to because you really can't set 300 ships on fire without having some members of the fleet
Definitely.
involved. 100%.
Yeah, it was partly an inside job, and you said this earlier. Like the army that was protecting the ships, it was not a Roman army. It was a mongrel army. There were probably Vandals in that army as well. People sympathetic maybe to Gaiseric, or just happy to earn a couple of gold coins to help out the bad guys. So Majorian is now sitting there across the short straits of Gibraltar with the tough choice in his hands, right, my son?
That's right. So what to do now? March back, abandon the campaign for maybe forever.
Yeah, or try to do something desperate. Maybe, get some fishing boats and ferry some men across. And I think Majorian assessed the situation and said, this is not the end. I need to play this thing thoughtfully and make certain that Rome has another crack at this. So he retired from Hispania. He returned to Arles, and he would spend kind of the next year there getting Gaul organized, received a peace invitation from Gaiseric. By the way, to put this in perspective, Gaiseric is 70 at this point. Majorian's about 40. And we think he looked at this and said, hey, that guy's not going to be here forever. I will. And so I'm going to bide my time and wait this out.
You had to, right? You have very little options at this point. You don't want to... It's what you said really well earlier on, which is you do have this army that is not loyal to Rome. They're loyal to, when are we going to get paid? And, as long as you're winning... winning solves all problems. And, how can I turn, this is a bad thing. And it wasn't anything he did necessarily. It's just that, Gaiseric outmaneuvered him and his people betrayed him. And, how can we play this in a way that isn't going to make me look weak? Because as soon as you look weak, these mercenaries they're not loyal to you. And so that gets really tricky. So I like the idea of him kind of retiring and being like, all right, we're not done. Cairo's waiting for us. Carthage is waiting for us. Their Vandals are super rich. They've been looting everything. All the good stuff they stole from Rome is waiting for us there. We're just going to go get it back. Just hang with me for like George Washington. Give me Valley Forge. Give me 6 months. We'll be back there. Hang on.
It's so true. But you know what the biggest problem at this point, and in the irony of all ironies, lay in the institution where all the goodness and where Rome's story really first sprang. That the biggest problem, my son, was... It was sitting in Rome itself, right?
Yeah, ego. It's an empire founded upon egos, right?
So, and in particular, the Senate.
Well, yeah, amongst the aristocrats for sure.
Yeah. So the Senate looked at what just happened, Ben, and said, hey, pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and suck it up, Buttercup, and let's go get those boys. We're Rome. Nobody does that to Rome. It's like they were completely tone deaf. They didn't realize the world in which they now inhabited was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, this guy lost. So he's a loser, or I guess. But
they
just don't understand, right? And there's also certainly a component that Majorian has friends in. All around the empire. He's winning over the population, but that doesn't always work for the higher ups and the powerful people who kind of liked the system where they could just plunder and loot everything. This guy's changing things, and he's kind of changing the mentality. We just need to wait for him to make one mistake, and then we can try to find a way to get rid of him. Or at least undermine him or whatever.
It's so well put, and we're going to see the same thing in the East in a short period of time with the Nika riots in Constantinople. There are a lot of people that have a vested interest in the existing order of things, and maybe change, even if it's changed for the better, for the greater good, isn't something that they like. So the whispers start, the conspiracy starts back in Rome while he's still in Gaul. Ricimer is absolutely a part of it, and the Senate and Ricimer start conspiring against this really remarkable, awesome guy who's doing everything he can to put the pieces back together again. And he was unaware. So we're now in 461. This is a year after the ships were burned. a year of Majorian in Arles, and he starts marching back to Italy, Ben. He disbands the army. He doesn't have money to pay them. And why would he need an army when he's just marching back home to save territory?
He's not on campaign. He's just heading home. What could possibly go wrong?
What could possibly go wrong? So he has his small bodyguard with him. He marches up and over the Alps and back down into Italy. And who is waiting for him on the road?
His good buddy.
With a massive army. Yeah, his good buddy. Who? Ricimer. Evil Ricimer. Yeah. So on August 3rd of 462, he's met on the road by Ricimer and in Tortona in northern Italy. And he was seized. As Hydacia says, Ricimer's men seized Majorian, stripped him of his purple and his diadem, beat him, and cut off his head. I mean, talk about a really unjustified...
Yeah, what unceremonious end, just grab him and get him.
Ends, yeah.
That's it. No, that's it. And so
and dead.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, he changed things, and he was moving. It seems like in a really positive direction. And then the first chance they got, they kind of jumped on him. And I mean, the interesting thing here is that this guy knew this was the system. He knew this was the job when he took it. And he must have known that some of the things he was doing were not going to be popular with the people who were in power with him. And I think it's kind of cool that he went ahead and did it anyway. It was like, I'm going to do what's best for Rome, and I'm not going to pay attention to these guys. I know they don't like me, but whatever. Who cares?
Yeah, he certainly knew what he was doing by defying the old world order. Mm-hmm. I mean, we saw it with Valentinian III and Avitus, when he was a younger man. So I think that's one of the reasons we appreciate him so much, because he understood exactly what he was doing and where it might lead him.
In the same way that Aurelian did. He saw a fire and he ran towards the fire.
Right, and that was kind of this guy too. He was leading from the front. He was doing his thing. He takes over after Rome has been sacked twice. The Goths get it. The Vandals get it. He takes over. He expands the empire back out to take Gaul and Hispania. He didn't, it's easy to say maybe he got a little greedy thinking he could take North Africa, but Gaiseric was worried about it enough that he offered a peace treaty. So maybe he wasn't that overconfident. Losing those ships really hurt. And so he dies in 461. And within 15 years, we're going to see historians debate when the end of the Western Roman Empire is, but nobody really takes it out past 476, which is about 15 years after Majorian's death. So he's kind of the end. There's not any, it goes back to what it was before. And that's the end of it.
He's it. For us, after researching this episode, we've decided in our non-professional historian manner that August 7th of 461 is the end. The death of Majorian is the end, and then it's the patients on life support, and we're just counting the days.
Right.
But he was, I think, one of the coolest testaments to him, Ben, we think, is that some of the most cynical historians in Roman history, guys that had nothing good to say about anyone, said remarkable things about him, which is if you can get Procopius to say something nice about you and Sir Edward Gibbon, it's incredible.
Yes.
It's you're doing something right. And Procopius said, this is such a quote, Majorian, who surpassed in every virtue all who ever were emperors of the Romans.
Wow.
Does it get better? Doesn't get better.
Not really. That's pretty high praise.
Yeah,
exactly. So, and you can imagine he had access to much more information than we did, of course. So.
Indeed, that too, for sure.
That's true. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Wow. Okay, so I guess one thing I like to do with these shows is to kind of ask, what's the lesson that we can learn from the story of Majorian? So he was a soldier who kind of came up probably out of nowhere, out of northern Italy, but not an aristocrat, not a patrician, probably. He rises up through the ranks of the military due to his own, ability rather than buying or inheriting. He raises up on merit. He's recognized as a good person who probably should be emperor. He takes over. He kind of fights corruption. He
he leads the army on an attack. He's inspirational to regular people. He's inspirational to his soldiers. He's very successful. And then at the end, he's kind of betrayed by his own corrupt system that, he tries really hard to change the system, but the level of corruption is so ingrained at this point in history that it can't be fixed. So what can we kind of take away from this story as a life lesson that we could maybe apply to our own lives when we have to people who have people trying to undermine you at every possible turn in your real life?
Matteo, what do you think?
I don't know. That's a tough one, but probably that to be fulfilled, you should probably stay true to yourself or something like that, Yeah. Because, many men who were probably great in life prior to being emperor, the minute they became emperor, definitely lost themselves, like, as a person, I guess. But when you look at Majorian, he seems that he definitely kept all of his virtues and
he kept his virtues. You're right. Yeah.
I love this because it is, he must have known that, because it's the history of Rome here, right? Like, we're not that far away from, the Praetorian Guard stabbing everybody in the back and emperors being overthrown by the Senate and by the population. Yeah. Literally, the emperor before him got killed by his own people. He knew that he must have known that what he was doing was going to be unpopular with the people who ended up getting him, but he still tried to do the right thing. And so I really feel like that's a good lesson of, like, you got to do the right thing, even if it's not popular.
Absolutely. Right thing for the right reasons. And and that kind of sustains you. And that was him, because there are a lot of people that might have tried to take back North Africa, but it was a question of personal glory. And you never get the sense of Majorian that was the case. And I think that's what allowed him to win over the hearts and minds and get people believing again. Doing the right thing for the right reasons.
Kind of what you said, Matteo. There was probably emperors who came into the role with like a good idea of, like, I'm going to change things, and then the second they got in there was like advisors who were like, dude, you don't want to change things, you're going to die if you do that. Like, you just don't believe it, it's fine.
Don't mess.
And it's something that we still see, nowadays, in the last 80 years with presidents in our own country. So that's very commendable.
It's hard to change the system, right? It just is. People
it is hard to change the system.
Like the same status quo. So, okay, well, Matthew, Matteo, Storm, thank you guys so much for coming on and talking to me about Majorian. I did not know the story before you guys submitted it to me, but I'm really glad that we were able to kind of go through this and talk about this really remarkable person who I don't think gets enough credit for all of the work that he did. But so anyway, thank you guys so much for coming on the show. It was great having you here.
Ben, Absolutely. Thank you. We loved it.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you so much.
Where can people find your podcast and other things that you're working on?
Yeah, so you can find us at lostromanheroes.com. You can find the podcast pretty much wherever you get your podcasts these days. We're just about everywhere. We release an episode every 2 weeks or so. And right now we're in the middle of Justinian Belisarius and a dream that was Rome and the reconquest of the West.
Yes, more uplifting for Rome when you're doing the Justinian Belisarius story.
Yeah, most definitely.
Okay, well, thank you guys so much. I'd love to have you guys back on at some point in the future to stump me with another Roman hero that I don't know about.
We've got some good ones for you, Ben. We'd love to come back. Thank you for this opportunity. This was great, and thanks to your listeners.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thanks to you guys for listening to this episode. We do this every week, so please do tune in. And we will be back next week with another badass. Until then, thanks again, and stay badass. Badass of the Week is produced by High Five Content and $7 Productions. Executive producers are Dwayne Johnson, Danny Garcia, Andrew Jacobs, Hiram Garcia, Brian Gewirtz, Frankie Chaparino, and of course, me, Ben Thompson. Writing is by me and my semi-regular but always awesome co-host, Dr. Patricia Larish. Story editing by Ian Jacobs. Our mixing, music, and sound design is done by the incomparable Jude Brewer. Production support by Jean McGale-Waite. Badass of the Week is based on my website, badassoftheweek.com, where you can read all sorts of stories about other badasses. If you want to reach out with questions or ideas, you can email us at badasspodcast@badassoftheweek.com.
If you like this podcast, please subscribe, follow, listen, tell your friends, and tell your enemies. And please leave us a review. If you want to support Badass of the Week, please check out our Patreon page. We'll be back next week with another one.